Hello, crochet crafters. We're right in the middle of making holiday stockings. We're pretty much using single crochet stitches, either working in the round or crocheting 41 across and turning and then stitching up the back. And we're using an I9 5.5mm USA crochet hook, and we're using a 4 worsted medium weight yarn. And on this particular stocking, I've already had a pattern for 1, 2, and 3. I haven't done the holly berry here, but you can find this on, I am going to do a tutorial on that. It just has to be done by itself. And we just went through how to work a cuff onto your stocking. This is about 9.5 inches long, so I just keep crocheting till I get to 9 or 10 inches, whichever you feel comfortable, however long you want your stocking to be. If you're doing like a Norwegian style pattern, you want a really super long stocking, you may want to go 12 inches. I don't know, it's really up to you as to how much you want to do. But what I'm going to do is, this is the seam in the back, working in the round. I chained one and kept working in the round. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stitches from the seam in the back. Or if you don't have a seam, you count 11 stitches from the very back of your stocking. And I'm going to make a red bootie. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw my yarn onto the back of my hook and then do a chain. That doesn't count as a stitch. So I'm going to go back through that one and do a work through of my tail. Notice I'm working my tail into that stitch. It's a little thicker, but it will even out. And then I'm going to go ahead and count 21 across. 2, 3, 4, 5. We're doing single crochet stitches. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. 21, chain 1 and turn, and as you go across back, on the back, this is going to be the back of your heel, you're going to go ahead and do 14 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Don't worry about the rest of these stitches. We're doing it right. Chain 1. Don't worry about those stitches. Now you want to do 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All single crochets, working in the front and back loop. 7, chain 1. So this is starting to look like a little boot in the back, the little heel cuff. So if you've done 7, you're going to chain 1 and turn, and then you're going to go back around and do another 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, working in the back and front stitch. And now that you're here, you're way up high, way up high. See this stitch down here? You're just going to hold your yarn tight. Make sure you hold it tight, because if you leave a lot of extra yarn, it's going to show. Pull that through just like that and do your single crochet, but make sure it's tight so that you don't have a big gap. If you don't do it tight, you're going to have a gap. So now you're going to chain 1. And you're going to have an extra stitch now. So you're going to, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. So instead of 7 stitches across, you'll have those 8 stitches. So what are you going to do? You're not going into the stitch you just worked. You're going to drop down and go into the back and front loop of that stitch. And again, make sure your yarn is not like wicked loose. Make sure your yarn is tight and you're doing a single crochet stitch just like you would any, so that you don't have all this excess loose yarn. And you're going to chain 1 and turn. Now you should have 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 doing single crochets, working in the back and front loop. And what are you going to do? You're going to go drop it down again to that stitch and pull it through as to do a single crochet, but make sure you pulling it tight and then chaining, because if you don't pull it tight, you're going to have gaps, people, gaps in your heel. Chain 1, and that keeps that stitch tight. Once you chain 1 and you turn it, okay? Chain 1 and turn it. So now you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and make sure you pick up the back and the front loop on the 10th. And see, even though I chained that, I still have a little bit of yarn that's kind of pulling there. So work through that next stitch, dropping it down. You're dropping down and you're pulling that stitch, and you're chaining, and then you're chaining 1. I mean, you're pulling it through as a single crochet and chaining 1. Turning your work. And when you go through that, you have now 1 stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Make sure you pick up the back and the front loop, because sometimes that drops and sticks. And what are you going to do? You're going to drop down, pick up that, make sure your yarn is tight on that heel, chain 1, because if you don't have it tight, it's going to definitely gap on you and it will look weird. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 single crochets in the back front loop, 9, 10, and now we have 12, 11, and 12, picking up that back and front loop. Now, drop it down, hold it tight, because if you leave it all gobbly-goop loose, so you've got to pull it tight with your back finger there, and chain 1, and turn. So it's looking something like this now. So you have to chain 1 and turn, and your stitches are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets, 6 single crochets in the back and front loop, 7, 8, 9 single crochets in the back and front loop, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Make sure on the 13th when you pick up the back and the front loop, and you're going to drop down. And when you drop down, again, holding it tight, chaining 1, and turning. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Making sure you pick up that back and front loop. Don't forget it. Dropping down again, holding it tight so you don't have a funky, loose single crochet stitch. You do your single crochet, you do a chain, you turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the back and front loop always, 8 in the back and front loop. All of them are in the back and front loop. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, grabbing both the back and the front loop. And then we're going to drop it down. Now you should have 3 more stitches left to drop down and then work across. So you're chaining 1 after you drop down and do that single. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and you should be on your 16th stitch. Single crochet, grabbing your back and front loop. You have 3 on this side. You drop down, you pick up the stitch, you do a single crochet, you chain 1. Now you should have 2 on that side. And going back across, making sure that's tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and picking up the back loop in that last stitch. So you should have 2 left on this side. This is my funky stitch that I started with. Go ahead and drop down, and it gets harder to hold it tight, I know, because it wants to really loosen up and add a lot of gap here. So it's really, really important that you hold it down and then you do that chain 1, which gives it that anchor. So you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets, 6 single crochets, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I feel like I should be singing something. 15. And on that last stitch, make sure you're grabbing the back and the front loop. And when you're dropping down to pick up that stitch on the ground or on that base, when you pick up at the base, make sure you're holding with this tight, because the stitch should be tight. If you haven't done them tight, then you'll notice right here that you have a huge gap. And if you have a huge gap, you need to start over again and just take it all apart and just start over, because I've done that where I haven't done my stitches in a very uniform manner, and sometimes it's hard. So I'm not going to do any more counting. We're just going to go across. You've got the idea now of how many stitches there are. You should have, as you go across here, you'll have one left on that side. And then I'll show you how to go across and do a decrease. I think when I did the other video, I did not do decreases. And if you do not know how to do a decrease, I will show you how. You can also watch another YouTube video that I have or someone else has is on crocheting, and all you have to do is say how to do a decrease in crochet stitches, and it will show you how to do a decrease. But there is a best place and best in use practice for doing decreases on a heel. So right here, my yarn wants to follow me. You have one stitch left going into that last stitch and picking it up. The last stitch, I wanted to see if I could kind of pull my tail through. That was just pulling my tail through right there. I have one last stitch left to do a single crochet in. I just pulled that yarn through because when I work it in, I can work it in from the inside. And I'm chaining one and I'm turning, and I have one stitch left on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and work all the way over to the other side and get to that last stitch. It's getting dark outside now, so my camera turned on to the automatic night flash. So if it looks a little different in color, it is a beautiful red, but when you have the night camera on, it doesn't look exactly like the color I'm working with. This is really a nice red, and it looks almost like a, I don't know, more cherry than red. It's a vibrant red. So I'm there. I'm going down to my last stitch, and remember, you're going to hold it tight. You're going to do that last stitch, and you're not going to chain. That last stitch, you're not going to chain, because what you're going to do is you're going to come down to the stitch, not the one that this is in, but the next one, and you're going to slip stitch. So you're going to go ahead and slip stitch. Now we're going to do, and I did that as a slip stitch instead of a decrease on that side, but we're going to do a decrease. So what you do for a decrease is well, you know what, I don't want to confuse you because I'm going to do a decrease on the other side doing it that way. So let's just do a decrease instead of a slip stitch. Pull it back out because I want to give you the same decrease on both sides. So you're going to go in the back and the front loop and pull it through, but instead of wrapping it around and doing a single crochet, you're going to go through the next one, and then you should have 3 on your hook, like so. If you wrap it around and you're holding it tight, you just pull it through all 3, and that's a decrease. I was going to do it a little differently on that side, but I know how to do it as I've been crocheting a long time, and I forget sometimes I need to follow some rules. So that's a decrease there. And your heel should look something like that. Again, if you have these major gaps right here, it's because you did not hold your yarn. See right here, if you have major gaps on this side, it's because you did not, when you drop down, you did not hold your yarn properly so that you could be able to do the booty, the heel part. So just start doing a single crochet all the way across now, being even with your stitches. And we're going to do a decrease on the other side, just like this side, and follow the rules of the pattern. I sometimes change it up and do my own thing, but I need to follow the rules of the pattern. Okay, so when we get over here, there is 2 stitches right there. Okay, so the same thing we did on the other side. We're going to pull this through, and we're going to pull it through this side and pull it through. So you've got 2 stitches together, wrapping it around, pulling it through all 3. That's your decrease. Okay, so you're going to jump up here, and I am going to have you slip stitch right there. And then as you slip stitch, I'm going to have you chain 1, and you're going to go across like this. So that's attached, just like that. Got some of my cat hair that's starting to attach there. So that's attached. And as you're coming across, you're going to do 1 more decrease, and then you're going to start building the heel. And I didn't do this in my other tutorial because I just told everyone to do a decrease. But if you don't know how to do a decrease, or you have never done a heel before, sometimes a decrease. Now I did a slip stitch over here, and you might say to me, well, why did you do a slip stitch and a chain 1? Well, you could just come up and start working across it, but it gives a gap. And sometimes I do my own little tricks and tips on things because I don't like the gaps that the patterns create. And I think, oh, I'm going to change that. So that's what I do. Okay. So when you come in across here, you've got this stitch right here, okay, that you've created, and you're gonna decrease it. You're gonna go into that stitch on the corner, and then you're gonna go into this stitch, and you're going to decrease that pattern. So that's another decrease. And as you're coming down, so there's 2 decreases in this foot, and they're both done right here. And you're working across. And then I'm going to show you what you can do on your own to finish off the boot, because you're not going to do any decreases till you get to the very end. So right here where we chained, we're going to do a decrease right there and right there. And when you do the decrease and you bring it in, look, you don't even have to worry about that chain anymore, that chain 1, because it's just on that side, it kind of worked itself in. So as your boot should look something like this, like my boot looks right now. And that's where we're at, because I've got another boot. This color is a different color than this, so if you're looking at it, this is kind of a cherry red, and this is kind of a vibrant red. So as you're looking at these colors, you are going to continue now working single crochets. You're not going to do any more decreases, and you're going to continue to work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 rows in whatever color you want. So if you want to change and go back to the green, or you want to finish up in the red, whatever color you want to finish up with, you can use. When you get to that 13th row, when you start doing the next one, you're going to do 2 decreases on each side, like I just showed you how to do a decrease. Then you're going to do 2 more rows. You're going to do another 2 decreases. And then when you go down another row, you're going to stitch it up. So you're going to flip it inside out, you're going to stitch it up, and this is how it gives it this booty look. So I'm not going to finish that with you because all of those rows that you're going to finish right now, right here, like this one, I know it looks different, but you're going to finish them up working in the round, and then you're going to do the decreases on the 2 parts here at the bottom, and then you're going to stitch, once you finish these next rows, you're going to stitch this up. Now, if you want your booty to be a little bit longer than this, you can do a couple more rows down here. If you want it to be a little shorter, I made a little funny pom-pom stocking. I wanted it to be shorter, so I shortened this boot up and gave it a little pom-pom at the end. Hey, it's your pattern. You can do whatever you want. So I hope that you like this tutorial today. If you do, please like me on my YouTube channel and follow me on my Etsy page as well, which is Lori's Handiwork. Thank you and have a great night, actually.